Okay, Peter, we're good to go.
Yeah.
Maybe you make one request, just a roll call of the commission members and the ready.
All right.
I think Rick will. Okay.
Commissioner White, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to open the Inland Water Course Commission special meeting of tonight.
Peter, you're gonna have to not wear your mask. I mean, you're sitting 6 feet apart.
Okay,
I've just got to be able to hear you all on the recording.
okay. Just to start, anybody who's here, who's listening, could you please mute your phone or your device until you're ready to speak? Because we don't want to hear out, back chatter. Also too, if there's any commission member, please announce yourself.
Commissioner White?
Yeah, this is Rick White, and I'm online. I can hear sort of okay. Thank you.
Rick, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And also too, anybody who's gonna be speaking during the public hearing, please wait until the presentation is completed and the commission has any questions or comments to ask. And when you do speak, please state your name and your address. Thank you. So first I'd like to, is there any citizens out there, either here or online, who'd like to make a comment not concerning any of the agenda today? If not, we have the minutes. Any comments, corrections, deletions? If not, I'd like to have a motion to accept the minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from January.
Please, you gotta announce your name and
Commissioner Pavano, make a motion to accept the January minutes.
can I have a second?
I'll second.
Steve seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Now I need a motion to open the public hearing.
Application 20-12.
Yes, excuse me, for application 20-12.
Commissioner Pavano makes it open the public hearing on application 20-12W.
Commissioner Rogan will second.
All in favor? Good. Up for the applicant?
Good evening, Commissioner. Attorney Timothy Sullivan on behalf of the applicant to preserve SM LLC. In attendance tonight are Bart Fauvet, the applicant's engineer, who just assisted me in putting the engineered print up. And I believe the applicant is represented tonight virtually by Mr. Joseph Kopacki. I don't know if he's going to acknowledge that. I believe he's available. I believe he's here virtually, the applicant.
Yes.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
The applicant has secured an option to purchase 110 acres from Shuttle Meadow Country Club known as Lot 1, Block 10 off of West Lane. The applicant is seeking to develop a 76-unit residential development to the south of the golf course, which includes performing regulated activities. As you can see, this is the golf course in this area here, and running from south to north. Excuse me. There are two watersheds, Willowbrook and Mattabasset, which on the site, as you travel north, would be the Willowbrook watershed, and to the south runoff would be the Mattabasset watershed. There are no flood hazard areas on the site. Of the 110 acres, there are approximately 46 acres of wetlands, which represent 42% of the property. The proposal has 4,411 square feet of direct impact to wetlands. Most of that, all of that is in this area here, which is just to the south as the access way comes off of West Lane. It splits, you have the westerly wetlands and you have the easterly wetlands. And that provided the access road to divide those two wetlands for the minimal impact. There are also 14,008 square feet of temporary impact to wetlands and 97,676 square feet of impacts within the upland review area, which is a permitted, however, subject to regulation. Triton Environmental originally flagged the wetlands in 2002, and the applicant has hired Soil Science and Environmental Services to verify the wetlands limits near the impacted areas. All lines have been field located. Scott Stevens is a soil scientist and Jennifer Benno, the biologist for the project. A wetlands report has not yet been submitted, but will be submitted within a week or so. And both Stevens and Benno will provide supporting testimony at the next meeting. While I do not want to provide too much engineering information, it's dangerous if I attempt to play engineer, and we'll defer to Mr. Beauvais. I will say that the only direct wetland impact is for the access road, as I stated previously, and it was situated at the narrowest crossing of the eastern wetlands areas. As Mr. Beauvais will explain in detail, there are no feasible improvement alternatives. All temporary disturbances will be restored, including replanting with native species. Wetlands mitigation is greater than 1-to-1. There is 18,000 square feet of impact, 4,000 direct, 14,000 temporary, and 26,000 square feet of mitigation. The applicant has recognized the wetlands and wooded nature of the property by proposing a cluster development to preserve the wetland and open space characteristics of the property. The applicant will be deeding 38.7 acres to the Berlin Land Trust, rather 19 acres to the Berlin Land Trust, and Shuttle Meadow Country Club will be deeding 38.7 acres to the Berlin Land Trust and providing access to the Blue Trail. At this time, the Blue Trail running along Wigwam Road here, there will be property deeded to the town of Berlin for a parking lot for the hikers to get them off the road on West Lane. At this time, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Beauvais. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. For the record, I'm going to give the secretary a copy of the presentation that's going to be used tonight, and also a copy of the presentation plans. I'll also provide her with electronic copies so she can include that on the record for the next meeting. Okay, as Tim has talked about, let me just kind of generally go over the site and what you're going to look at. For the most part, north is going to be to the right of the plan. West Lane is going to be on the left-hand side over here. We got the old Wigwam Road, which is an unimproved paper street, basically. The back nine of the Shuttle Meadow Golf Course is located in this area. There are homes located to the east, located off of Harvest Hill and Lindy Drive. There's a couple homes located here on West Lane, scattered across the area, and a predominantly large wetlands that kind of feeds off to the south of this location. The applicant has an option for 110 acres, which is included within this black line here, includes this red circled area and purple circled area. Just to give you some context, Shuttle Meadow owns about 321 acres. So this is roughly a third of their holdings within the town of Berlin. They own another 46 acres in the Britain. So combined, they own almost 316 acres within this area. To give you a little history of the course was designed over 100 years ago by Willie Park, who's a relatively famous golf course architect. The intent was, when they bought this piece to the south, to build an additional 9 holes on the property. That's never come to pass. This is considered extra property for the golf course, and the country club does now. So these 110 acres are basically undeveloped. They have been used originally for some agricultural uses and evidence of retaining walls through the site. There's some evidence, you look at some of the old aerials of some farmers' fields within those areas. I'm not sure if this is the area they call three fields or this is another area. Seems like any subdivision's got a three fields area within the project area. But there has been previous activity at the site. Right now it's vacant. That's basically a scrub forest, and there's no activity other than hiking trails that people use to make shortcuts between the Harvest Hill area and over to West Lane. The proposal, well, as Tim said, there's approximately 46 acres of wetlands on this 110 acre piece. The proposal is to develop this site for 76 building units. There are multifamily units in this area called Brook Meadow, and there's approximately 48 units there. And then approximately 28 units within the Glen Ridge, those will be single family homes. This will be developed as a condominium type development, so it won't be individual lots, will be units, and the association will be maintaining all this area. Considering the type of development this is, this will, in my opinion, give for better stewardship of the property, because you're going to have an association maintain and take care of this whole property instead of individual property owners who may do and say what they want to do. As I said it during the Planning and Zoning Commission, when we got the zone changed to a PR2 zone, this is a very unique opportunity for the town of Berlin. The intent of this project is to provide a development associated with the golf course that will allow members of the club as well as other members of the public to be able to utilize this piece of property. And as such, we are proposing a golf course path that will traverse back to the back behind the golf course into a golf shed area so people can park their cars, go for lunch, and have access back to the course using a golf court instead of having to drive through and make traverse through. So the hope is that members will buy this, maybe use this area as maybe a summer home, and then maybe winter they'll go south. But there's an opportunity in town that does not exist at the present time, and there's no such type of housing in the town right now. As you know, West Lane is here. We are proposing 3 roads: Don's Way, Brightwood, and Sunny Ridge. Don's Way is over 2,000 feet long. Brightwood is a little less than 1,000 feet long, and Sunnydale is about 800 feet long. Besides the area, we are proposing bringing water into the site from a main that's located here on West Lane through the site, into the site. And there's also an existing sanitary service located on Harvest Hill. We are proposing a forced main go from a pump station approximately this location through that area and in. I'll go over the impact shortly. As Tim also mentioned, when we got involved in this project in 2002 for the Shuttle Metal Club, they had hired a firm called Triton Environmental to do the wetlands delineation. And they did a full delineation on the site. Unfortunately, 18 years after the fact, we couldn't get hold of their soils report, so we've now retained Soil Science Environmental Services to provide that impacts. We have field staked each of the wetlands line as Triton had staked out within each of the impact areas I'm going to show you. Scott has gone through, looked at those flags, has readjusted the flags as necessary. We have field goal, kick those flags, put those back on the site. So what you see in those impacted areas are the adjusted lines that Scott Stevens will present when he gets his report finished, and we bring it to you at the next meeting. I think it's important to kind of understand the site before we get too much into detail. So just quickly, again, this is the same plan with West Lane here, the golf course to the north, the homes to the south on Glenview and Woodbrown Road. We've got a predominantly large wetland area that encompasses about 46 acres of our site and more when you kind of look at it in the context. You've got a wetland area that predominantly takes up the eastern side of the site. There is a figure that works itself back within the site area here. There's a secondary wetland, or this wetland connects back into a larger wetland system that crosses to the northwest of the site and eventually drains out to the north of the property. The wetlands are important from the standpoint that they provide a kind of a natural transition. This is all wooded forest within the area. And these wetlands areas kind of go from wooded to wooded. There's very little change in the plant life within these areas, but there is some, and as Jen Bennett will point out when she presents her report, they are proposing us to replace some of these plantings within some of these buffer areas with native species. And then we intend to do that so we maintain the integrity of this line that runs through the site. The other important element to realize is the watershed. And Tim kind of touched this on this a little bit. But this site is kind of divided up into two distinct watersheds. And it kind of runs through this blue line. The area to the south and east all flow towards the Manabasset River. And I've kind of given an indication on this plan about how the water flows into the site. But predominantly most of this wetland area, or this watershed area, comes from the original golf course, the houses up on Moreland Hill, and drains down through these areas. There's two outlets within this area. There's an existing 42-inch pipe that's connected underneath Glenview and discharges out to the wetland. That takes about 125 acres, this entire wetlands. The rest of the 65-acre wetland discharges through these wetland areas here, connects through, and then takes about a mile to reach the Manabasset River. The other half of the wetland lies to the north and west of the site. And this is a much larger watershed, and in fact takes most of the drainage off of Ragged Mountain through a series of swales and brooks, connects through, discharges it out, and through here. Our intent is to kind of mimic the existing water patterns within the subdivision when designing the drainage area so that we've replicated the existing water flow, as you'll see as we proceed further through. In each of the detention areas, there's 4 detention areas, is designed to provide a net zero impact on runoff. So the runoff that happens pre-condition will not be exceeded by the runoff after this project is done. We're going to have 3 detention areas within the Manabasset watershed, and then a separate detention area that'll flow through into the Willowbrook area. And I can apply you with percentages and areas and stuff, but I'll suffice it to leave it in the report that I give Liz. And if you have questions on anything particular, I'd be more than happy to touch base with you on this thing. The plan you see before you now kind of overlays the impact areas. This is part of our submission set, which shows the areas of impact running from impact 1 to impact 16. And these impacts are necessary to make the development happen. I will start with each of these impacts, each of the ones that are depicted on the plan. I think I included the discussion of the impacts. I won't go through all the detail in the submission, but let me just kind of go through each of these individually. Impact 1 is the primary disturbance area within the wetlands. It's 4,411 square feet in size, in which it entails the crossing of the wetland area here, going from this pocket, which is about 2.7 acres, flowing through into this larger wetland here. As Tim pointed out, is the narrowest portion of the 2 areas here, and we feel it's the most feasible and prudent alternative to bring into the site. Obviously, we can't come into the site any other place that'll create disturbances greater than that from the wetlands. If we did try to work ourselves around to the north or around this wetland area and come in, we would be impacting this entire side wetlands area where these steep slopes are located around the north side. So we feel the 4,000 square feet crossing is very manageable. It provides us with the opportunity to make a quick transition, leaving minimal disturbance for the rest of the area around here. Again, that's 4,411 square feet. We are proposing to mitigate that 4,400 square foot impact by creating a 26,000 square foot mitigation area, which I'll talk about in a second. But that's located over here in the just off the cart path. It is somewhat separated from the site, but it's kind of more general to the overall impact of the area and is within the watershed of the Manabasset. So we are kind of switching watersheds when we do this thing. We are proposing a twin 30-inch culvert within that area is kind of crossed by a series of small little intermittent water courses. It seems like the water courses tend to follow where the footpaths are, so as there's an elevation transition of about 10 to 12 feet between these two areas. And as the water flows and suddenly kind of within the area, it tends to flow across, kind of find this point of least resistance, which happens to be a footpath, that kind of follows itself down the footpath. And then the hikers get sick of hiking through the wet stuff, they move the footpath over a couple feet, and eventually that water course will move over to the next well. So you've got a couple right now existing little water courses through this area. Obviously, a twin 30-inch is not going to take anywhere near the flow that's happening right now. So what we're proposing is to lay the one pipe pretty much on the thread of the major water course at the time, and then the second one will be used for major floods as they come through the area, but will be used by mammals and small amphibians to help cross that wetland, so they can go from the upper wetlands to the lower wetlands or vice versa. And as I should mention, the sizing of this culvert and all these detention areas were done to handle the anticipated 100-year storm. The interior drainage work within the site is all designed for a 25-year standard, but the major crossing here and these three detention areas I'll point out eventually will be designed to a 100-year storm limit. The second and third impacts deal with our activity proposed to make this crossing between the non-wetland area here to make the jump across the wetlands, to provide either the access way back to the club and also the forest main connection. Just go back to this for a second. You'll see we attempted to make that crossing again at the narrowest point of the wetlands to kind of minimize activity. There is a seasonal water course that does cross through there. We've anticipated that, and in our discussion, we've talked about well pointing potentially through those areas. Especially in the case of the force main, where we're going to be providing the force main below ground 4.5 feet. So there's probably going to be a groundwater issue. So we talk about well pointing, siltation stacks and such, minimizing the amount of open trench within the area. That's all included within the discussion. Activity-wise, the bridge is going to be built basically self-sufficient of going into the wells. They can build these bridges now basically on the deck and move forward. The only thing they're going to just do is cut the trees off and brush. They're going to leave the ground along. They're going to dry the piles. They're going to extend out. They're going to bring the deck back out. They're going to move the machine out, and they're just going to build the bridge that way. So in essence, we're not really touching the soils below the bridge. We're really just affecting the vegetation. That's the same case almost from the standpoint of the force main. The force main will be installed. We will save the wetlands type soils. We'll build the trench up to a certain level, and then we'll replace those wetlands type soils along the force main. We just view both these as temporary impacts. There's no real permanent disruption of the soils, more of just the vegetation. And I will tell you, and I will have this ready for the next meeting, and I apologize for not having it now, but there is a footpath that kind of crosses through this area here. And we are going to look at the potentially of giving this commission an alternative crossing location on the footpath. The footpath is already devoid of vegetation already. So maybe even though it's slightly longer across the wetlands, there'll be a less of a net impact across the wetlands due to the lack of vegetation. But we're going to outline that and give you guys the layout so you can actually see what the two opportunities are between them. So we've got a permanent impact or a temporary impact. And the last 15 items that we discussed are activities that are going to be with a disturbance within the regulated 50-foot flood review area. The first area, which is this impact number 4, which is part of the wetlands mitigation. The intent here is to regrade that area, take down the trees, regrade that, drop that down to an area, an elevation the same as the adjacent wetlands, and create kind of a wet meadow within the area that's a part of the habitat that's not present at the present time, but we feel complementary to the to the trees within those areas, that temporary impact area. That impact area, from our standpoint, is about 19,550 square feet of the 26,000 square feet of plant, square feet mitigation. The proposal is to plant that area with species and plants that are conducive and complementary to the adjacent wetland area. And then we have, if I just go through this, proposed water main coming up along West Lane. We're calling it Area 5. That's got an impact of about 4,357 square feet. All that work is going to be done on the roadway. Unfortunately, the roadway's got wetlands basically on both sides. So that falls automatically within the upland review area. But all that work is going to be done on the roadway. We've got those provide siltation fence to minimize work within the disturbance area and such. Area 6. Area 6, Area 10, Area 11, and Area 12, it's kind of highlighted in yellow on this plan. It's kind of hard to see, I know. All involve the impacts involved around the detention basins that will be designed. Now, basins 1 and 2, located in these two areas, will be designed so that they flow down into this wetland area, the Madagascar that I talked about originally. Basin number 3, which is impact area 14, is going to be designed so that it still flows within the Madagascar, but it takes kind of a circuitous route with the flows and heads through here through that pipe and out. Those are all going to be part of the Madagascar system. Area 12 is part of that watershed area that goes to the north that I talked about into the Willowbrook that kind of cuts that area off. We kind of designed this so that the watershed and the drainage structures are all self-contained within the small little watershed portion. And that's going to discharge out and then flow back across there's the driving range, if you know the club at all. They've got a pond called Mason Pond, at least that's what it's called in the USGS maps, and it eventually flows out to the Willowbrook. Each of these ponds are going to be designed for a 100-year storm. They're going to provide a net zero impact. So any water that leaves the site is going to be at or below the level of flow, the pre-existing conditions. So we're not going to add any more flow off-site. All the site water is going to be contained within these 4 areas. We looked at minimizing these areas and creating fewer areas. Our feeling was that we did a better job of self-containing these areas. So in case of phasing and breaking down the site, we were able to control these flows in much smaller, create some larger basin and have a bigger impact over a larger area instead of 3 smaller impacts along the fringes in those areas. The rest of the impacts deal with the crossing, areas 7 and 8. Both those are the approaches coming in and out off the roadway crossing. We're within the 50-foot fringe within both those areas. Those areas are necessary to make this crossing. We're putting a 30-inch pipe, and then we're bringing the road up to about here. So we've got about 4 or 5 foot fill area to make that crossing. It's going to necessitate us filling across those 2 areas on both sides. Those are both included within the areas. We've got area 9, which is located along this first building. It's a rather small area, but it does fall within the 50-foot area. As Jim Benno in our environmental assessment, we'll talk about the rarest and invasive species growing in there. And we're not going right to the edge of the wetland, so it's a perfect opportunity to provide some buffer plantings along that area so we don't have a direct impact. Area 13 is this area car path that's located along this portion to that fall within that 50-foot area. We are in some places 30, 40 feet away, so we're at the far end of that buffer area. Again, we'll be able to maintain the existing vegetation, so we're going to be able to maintain the recommendation of soil scientists when they make the report. Area 14, 15, and 14 and 15 deal with the approaches for both the cart path and the force main as it makes that crossing. Again, we're within the 50-foot buffer. And then area 16 is an area that we're proposing that basically install the force main on the outside of the wetlands. And again, that, from our standpoint, is going to be a temporary type impact because there'll be no permanent structure, and that can be replanted, and will have a minimal impact. So really, the most permanent features you're going to see, besides 4 detention areas, will be the road crossing, the cart path, and then the crossing of the cart path across the wetlands and the creation of mitigation. Tim kind of gave you the numbers before, but just to kind of summarize again. So our direct impacts on this entire area are only 4,411 square feet. 4,411 square feet, that's out of our total area of 110 acres, so it's a relatively small area. Our temporary impacts are about 14,000 square feet for the bridge and the force main, and again, I'm going to give you an alternative at the next meeting. And then the impacts in the upland reviewer are 97,676 square feet, approximately 2.24 acres in size. If I haven't kind of intimated already, I'm going to ask this public hearing to be extended to the next meeting. We are awaiting the wetlands assessment. Jen has basically finished it. She sent it over just yesterday for me to start making my reviews. So we should have it in Jim's hand probably within a week and have him be able to review it. Maybe we can get Jen available and we can meet with her and Jim and we can go over that report. And we should have a soils report also kind of verifying what I've talked about for Scott Stevens in his location. Again, we provided a lot of material. I just kind of gave you an overview of the impact and the design of the impacts. Included within the set of profiles of the roads, more detailed design features of the detention areas, where we're providing a detention area, a level spreader. We are doing a pre-treatment area within each of the areas to trap sediment and silt within the areas. We've provided a lot of detail on the plans, which I haven't shown, and I'd be more than happy if you have a question on the plans to pull them out and look at them. But I guess I'll open up the commission questions.
I just have, well, it's a twofold. I was contacted by somebody in the area, and they were concerned of, attorney, you said, there was parking spaces for hikers who want to come there.
Yeah.
When he said 2 weeks ago, I guess it was a nice weekend, they had 80 cars parked on West Lane. People are going to be walking all over. Is there going to be, places where, are they going to be able to walk through the area? Are there going to be directions? He was really concerned. He was more concerned about that than the actual building of the property.
And they didn't point out the parking lot because it really doesn't have much wetlands in it.
I understand that, but if people are going to be walking through wetlands, are they going to be, what are their options of?
We obviously know there's an issue with parking within the area. We provided a parking lot for approximately, I think, 43 parking spaces. And our intent was to donate that parking lot and the parcel around it, which was a little over an acre, to the town of Rome once completed. And from a design standpoint, we were looking to do that parking lot really early in the project. We weren't going to leave it to the end. We were going to put that parking lot in immediately to start getting some cars off the track. 80 cars, I don't doubt there were 80 cars out there. Right now, there's probably enough pull-off spaces around the curve that people kind of pull off there.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Are they going to be?
Probably eight cars right now. So we're going to provide much more traffic control and hopefully try to get most of these cars off these roads. During the heavy peak weekends, will there still be a lot of people using it? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully when they hang around the house and go hiking, they're gonna do other things. But generally, before the pandemic, I thought 40 cars was plenty. We've gone up to 43 cars. We can potentially expand that area, or we can give the town an additional area. The problem is that this little figure of wetlands that ties back in here starts now to encroach. So if we add some more parking, the parking lot's gonna get closer and closer to the wetlands in the back. So that's something we can talk to staff about, but the intent is to try to help control the parking with a dedicated parking lot.
Right.
Again, you said this weekend there were 8 cars. It was snow on the ground.
Well, no, it was, what 2 weeks ago they had was one of the nice weeks. He said he said he counted 80 cars
Right.
on West Lane from one end to the other.
Right.
And he was concerned about people gonna be walking.
And they go down that way.
Yeah,
From the standpoint of hiking through the property, we're going to try to control hiking through the property. And that's one of the reasons we've worked with the land trust to give them additional property so they can develop their own trails within some of those areas. The one thing we don't want are people walking through into the site. And, you know, again, this is going to be a close community. In fact, we're proposing a gate within the area. So the intent is not to let people start coming through here, but kind of controlling the traffic through. We're hopefully going to dedicate enough property to the Blue Trail and whatever the club wants to develop, they'll have enough room to do that. So besides the agreement for the property here and that the land trust is looking to acquire, they've also got a request that some of this Blue Trail area off-site be protected, and we intend to do that too. So that's not an issue from our standpoint, except for the standpoint of people coming through the site. And it seems like most of the trails are working through the site. There's a trail that kind of comes to the north of a detention area, flows up the hill, comes down this peninsula, crosses over that I showed you, and it's over to Harvest Hill. There's a couple more trails that kind of bisect through and come up through the site. Other than being used for originally maybe some farm equipment or something through the area. And more recently, of course, I don't know how much more recently, a lot of people have jumped their cars through the site, so all that's going to be cleaned up too as part of the project. But that's what our plan is. We've got to sit down with staff. This is our first step, obviously. Working with staff, we've kind of shown them our plans, but we've really never had a discussion with them on maintenance and upkeep with materials and stuff.
now I know this doesn't concern us, but is there gonna be improvements to the road, you know?
Pardon me?
Is there gonna be improvements to the road itself?
We have had some general discussions about that too, about working with the town and doing some improvements. I think that road hasn't been maintained.
Right, yeah.
A long time, so.
Yeah,
We are, and by putting the sewer, the water trench alongside the road, there will be some disturbance. So we recognize some responsibility for that, and I'm sure we can work with the town and cooperate and have a mutual repair, reconstruction of that road area.
Commissioner Rogan, so let me understand, the parking lot, the residents will be entering through that parking lot to get to
There's going to be a separate driveway off of West Lane. I don't know if you can see it or you forgot the bigger plan, but we've got our boulevard entrance coming off the main road. And just to the west of that, there's a separate driveway that'll feed that parking lot. We are proposing a bituminous surface for least a driveway into the site. At this time, we're just showing a gravel parking lot right now, because that seems to be what the town's been doing when they've done some of their other parking lots off the Chamberlain Island and such. But again, we haven't had any discussion, so I don't want to speak for Jim. I don't want Jim to comment on it, because we haven't gone that far for the details. But there will be a separate driveway. It really is not going to impact, maybe impact 2 or 3 spaces off the road for the people pulling in. I don't know if the police department even want people parking on the road once they get the parking lot in. Again, we haven't had any discussions yet, so those are some options that need to be worked out.
In part, those would be better suited for discussions with the planning and zoning.
Right,
Correct.
exactly.
I was just curious because, you know, you said there's a lot of walking trails in there. You know, are people gonna be able to, you know, I want people walking through the property if they don't.
And honestly, I don't know if these people here, you go up the mountain or they come this way. My guess is these are probably people who live down in this area. They maybe walk up
Right.
into this area. I mean, I'm sure there are people that walk within these flatter areas and want to go up the mountain. But I think predominantly you're going to see people in the neighborhoods using these more than the hikers that want to park there.
Right.
And there are cars from out of state galore on that road. I can tell you that from visually inspecting that. So it is a very popular spot.
Jerry, have anything?
I just in the area.
Is it possible from Wetlands perspective only, that in keeping with planning and zoning and the police commission, if they needed a little bit more room, if there was some mitigation needed to expand that parking lot a little bit, is that something that could be negotiated at this point?
I think it probably could.
Okay, so that'll be good.
Excuse me, this is Commissioner White. Can you all hear me okay?
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, and this may be because my audio isn't perfect, but I wonder if you could clarify for me. In one of the documents you submitted to the town, the discussion of proposed wetlands impacts in like areas 10, 11, and 12, for example, maybe there are more, but there's a statement in here that says the 4-part drainage system that will provide a new increase in runoff for the entire development. And I thought during your discussion, you made a statement that there's no net increase in runoff. Can you help me understand? Like I say, maybe I heard it wrong, but could you?
You read it right and you heard it right. And I apologize. In fact, Attorney Sullivan brought this point up to me today and I neglected to mention it. That should say no new net increase, not no new runoff, but no net increase in runoff. So that's a typo on my part. I will provide a corrected PDF to staff so she can have that posted. But we are not increasing at all any runoff of the site, and that's a mistake on my part for those 3 detention areas. You'll notice that area 6, the verbiage is correct. I just never caught it and changed it in those other 3.
Okay, thank you. One other question on, the grading you're doing around building 18. And I think you said that's in an upland review area. So that's an upland review area, which I guess, a whole lot of the site is, but building 18, is there any real change in that work you're doing alongside building 18? How does that change the topography and, the impact on wetlands? Could you talk about that a little more, please?
Sure. Area, I believe it's 9, is upland review area. I should point out the building 18 is not within the buffer area, or not within the upland area. It's just the sloping adjacent to the building. And at present time, that area is more of a gentle slope as it flows up from the wetland and into the site. What we're proposing is to put the building up probably about 6 feet in elevation. And we're gonna hunch material around the side of the building and then slope it off at a 2-in-1 slope. We're not gonna come to the edge of the wetlands. We're gonna come between 5 and 8 feet, depending on how the line meanders. And then we're gonna plant that slope and that buffer area with enhanced plantings. What you'll find out in the soils report, and I kind of will cheat and tell you because I've already read it, there are some invasive species within that area. So those invasive species will be removed. And we will plant that with wetland type, friendly type planting. So other than maybe a 5-foot walkway to walk around the building and a 2-to-1 slope off, everything will remain the same. Next to the wetlands.
So building 18 is not being built in an upland review area?
Building 18 is out of the review area, yes.
But you're terming that the bank that will approach it becomes an upland review area?
Yeah, the fill on the side of the building and the slope down falls within the 50-foot review area.
Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else on the commission have? Jim, do you have any? Is there any citizens who would like to ask a question, make a comment? If you do, please state your name and your address.
I have questions. Joseph Paglia, Relief, 56 Glenview Drive.
Go ahead.
So my first question is storm runoff. You're proposing that it comes to Glenview Drive, correct?
May I respond to that?
Yes.
A portion of it from detention area 3 will go through the existing culvert. The rest of the site will fall to the south of your property through that wetland to those detention areas, detention area 1 and 2, but only detention area 3 will eventually flow through that area.
Okay. Now, who currently cleans that culvert that drains the wet area?
Well, my guess is the easement is to the town of Berlin, so they'd be responsible for that.
Well, I would agree, but that is not the case. The neighbors clean that, and when they don't, our properties flood. So if you're dumping more into that area, you will cause flooding. How do we address that?
Well, the question is, we are not dumping more. We're going to dump no more than what's existing out there. So we're not going to increase flows through that area.
So the discharge from your retention area is not going to drain into Glenview Drive?
It will, but portions of that site already flow into Glenview Drive. So we're not changing our watershed characteristics. We're just collecting the water from the impervious surface areas of the site, running it through the detention area, holding it back so the peak flow off that area is not any more extensive than what's happening now, and letting it follow its natural course through the site.
Okay. Just a side comment. Placement of your easel is impossible for the rest of us to follow along. Next question is, who will be servicing this development in regards to water and sewer?
At the present time, Berlin Water Control would like to control it. We're working out the details between Berlin Water Control and the Kensington Fire District. I don't think any determination has been made at this time.
Have you reached out to the Kensington Fire District?
I have not been dealing with them. I understand there has been some communication, but I'm not exactly sure what, to the extent of that communication.
Well, I can tell you for sure that there has been no communication, and Water Control has no ability to service that development. Will this development be part of the Kensington Fire District?
Mr. Chairman, Jim Horrible, if I can just make a statement, that discussion is not germane to this commission. It's a discussion that's better suited to be discussed with the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Well, I beg to differ, Mr. Harble, because what he's stating is the discharge from their force main will be entering Harvest Hill. Why would it enter Harvest Hill through the wetlands if they weren't discharging into the Kensington Fire District system?
Again, I think that's between the Water Control Commission and the Kensington Fire District, and they're discussing. From what I understood, now I may be wrong, but from what I understand, there are discussions taking place. I don't know how detailed they are, but I think there have been at least some preliminary discussions on that. And as Jim said, we're working on that. Attorney Sullivan's working on that, and we plan to have that resolved before we bring this to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Well, Mr. Beauvais, just so you're aware, I am the chairman of Kensington Fire District, and there's no talks with the district regarding that. So I asked the Wetlands Commission, how can you approve this going through the wetlands to Harvest Hill with the sanitary if there is no plan in place to actually discharge into the Kensington Fire District?
So at this point in time, Mr. Chairman, you have a current proposal before you.
Correct.
Okay. If there's a change in that proposal when it's presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission, it would come back to this commission. Your commission at this point in time is to address the impacts as they're proposed by the applicant that pertain to wetlands, not to the utility itself and who controls the utility, merely the impact to the regulated areas.
Well, let me modify my question. So, Mr. Beauvais, have you analyzed the impact of the Kensington Fire District with the service of water and sewer to your development?
I personally have not done an in-depth analysis on flows and impacts on that line yet, no.
Attorney Sullivan, do you know if this is an issue that's yet to be resolved? Has there been discussion since you're representing the applicant?
To my knowledge, there's been no discussion with the Kensington Fire District or the Water Control Commission. I've just recently been involved since early January. If there were discussions prior to that, I'm unaware of those.
Do you agree that at this point in time, the commission's role is to assess the impacts as they're proposed? If there's a change in the impacts, it would require that application to come back and be revised by this commission.
That's the Inland Wetland Commission's sole jurisdiction in this matter, these impacts to wetlands. If for some reason the utilities were changed and diverted in another manner, then we would have to come back to this commission and amend any permit that is issued.
Okay, well, I do have one other question. Has there been a study for any endangered species in the area proposed for the development?
Yes, there is. It'll be included in the wetlands assessment that we'll provide the commission before the next meeting.
Have you found any preliminary impacts?
From what I understand from reading Jen's initial report, there were no impacts on the site. There are probably more impacts up along the top of the ridge, but in this transitional area down at the bottom and to the residential area, she did not observe any endangered species within those areas.
Okay, and when was that study conducted?
Within the last 2 weeks.
And how long was the study conducted for?
She was probably out there a good part of December and January.
That's it? I would think you would have to do a much more in-depth study that would take a longer period of time.
I will defer that question until the next meeting so Jen can answer it directly.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a comment or question for Mr. Bovee or Attorney Sullivan?
Yes, my name is Enzo Di Benedetto. I live at 88 Glenview Drive. The question I have is in regards to the timing of the project. How long does the project plan on taking? And maybe a two-part question, what kind of noise abatement measures are being taken or would be taken?
The intent is to develop permits, get everything approved. My guess is if everything went fairly normally and things weren't held up over the past next year as it were this year, you probably see construction sometime summer or fall. Length and duration of the project, it's hard to say. It's based on market demand for the units. My guess, you're probably looking at a 3 or 4 year build out of the units, depending on how rapidly demand is. From the standpoint of noise abatement, the residential type uses in there really aren't going to generate a lot of noise. Most of this project has been designed so it's built within the confines of the property and provide, over 150, 200, in the case of the road, almost 500 feet of frontage. Most of the homes are located adjacent to the wetlands. Very few of the end units are even close to the houses over on Glenview, so all the units are kind of tucked in the front and in the center of the site. So we don't anticipate any significant noise coming off the site.
Okay, let me clarify that, because I guess what I meant was the construction noise, and the units adjacent to my property are approximately 250 to 275 feet, the condos. So I'm just wondering what kind of noise abatement is being planned for the enormous loud noise of machinery, plows, bulldozers, you name it.
I don't have an answer for you. I think that's more of a planning and zoning commission question. I will ask the applicant when I talk to them next. Maybe we can come up with something. I think this town has got statutes for working within that kind of limit the hours that work can be done within the area. But I will touch base with the client, see if he can give me an idea of exactly what the clients are doing for construction, when they may be over at that end of that section, because that's probably the second phase of the multifamily unit. So we can kind of fine tune the timeline for you.
Well, thank you. But, one of the things that selfishly so is attractive about this area is the peace and quiet, which will be no more. I did have another question about construction for the pumping station or the runoff, if there was, on Harvest Hill. what kind of impact or what kind of construction would have to happen to the road, to the approach of our to Glenview in order to install that equipment?
The pump station itself is not going to be located on Harvest. So the pump station will be located in the interior portions of the site. So really the only work that's going to be done is going to be running an existing or a proposed 4-inch pressure line and force main through the end of Harvest Hill. The manhole itself is located on Harvest Hill, so it doesn't really impact Glenview at all. But that'll extend further in. The town owns property up to our property line with a 50-foot strip. Granted, there are some vinyl fences. Those will have to come down temporarily. The force main will be installed. Once all that work is done, the site will be restored. The fences will be put up. You won't even know it's there.
Is Harvest Hill, is the road going to have to get cut up to get lines put in?
You're going to have to trench for the force main, but that's the only work. So the trench is probably 4 to 5 feet wide.
All right, so we're basically going to have to navigate, because it's the only way to get to our houses. We're going to have to navigate around that construction.
Well,
So it's going to be a one-way road or half a road now?
The manhole we're proposing to connect into is located on that section beyond the intersection of Glenview and Harvest Hill. So people coming from Harvest Hill turning into Glenview are not going to be impacted at all by construction.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions?
Well, Joseph Tagliarelli again. I have another question, as Enzo brought up. Realistically, I have a construction background. There's no way you could do your construction without impacting Glenview Drive. Furthermore, you're assuming your sewer is going through the wetlands there, but you aren't sure. So how can you seek approval from wetlands?
We've had that area of wetlands located.
Yeah, I understand, but you're suggesting you utilize it. You haven't explained who will clean the storm line that you're proposing to discharge in, and in fact, it can handle it and you don't have to upgrade it, as well as the sewer line and water to service the area. I think it will be a dramatic impact on Glenview Drive and Harvest Hill.
I don't know if that's a statement or a question, but I can tell you we do not anticipate at all going on the Glenview. The only area of Harvest Hill is that little dead end section, was probably 75 feet, 100 feet, something that extends from the intersection. And that's where the only work that we're proposing to be located.
The storm line runs through a piece of property through Glenview, through another piece of property to Harvest Hill. How will you access that in order to drain your retention pond?
We're not connecting to that pipe at all. That is existing overland flow that flows into that area. There's got to be maintenance on that. That's something the town can deal with. If we participate, I can't promise you anything, but right now, whatever flow is going through there now is going to be going through there in the future after construction. If it's necessary for us to increase our size to reduce the amount of flow, we can do our best to reduce the amount of flow, but we are anticipating not adding any more flow into any of those pipes that are located. In fact,
No, you're proposing on West Lane. Who will maintain that parking lot?
The parking lot is right now is proposed to be taken over by the town of Berlin.
So the town of Berlin would absorb the expense of your development to maintain that parking lot.
That's open for discussion on how we're going to do that, but that's the proposal right now.
I don't think I like the idea of my taxes going up.
Right. In my opinion, the town of Berlin, I mean, Harvest Hill, Glenview Drive are in poor shape as far as asphalt is concerned in general. So the town of Berlin doesn't have any extra funds to take care of a parking lot that you provide for 40 spots. So why should we be responsible for that parking lot? Shouldn't that be part of your association dues?
Excuse me, this is Chairman Neiman of the Inland Wetlands. These are great questions, but unfortunately, they're not questions that we can answer at this time. It's not part of our commission. maybe go to planning and zoning, you can contact the town. I don't want to be rude or anything like this, but this really isn't part of our commission.
I understand. Well, I would just say this then. I've been part of many studies in regards to endangered species, and they've taken much longer than a month and a half to identify and look for and identify. So I would encourage the Inland Wetlands Commission to do their due diligence and make sure that we're not impacting any species that is indigenous to the area.
I appreciate your comments, and next month, when we get the study, we will do our due diligence and look into it. And if we have questions with the study, we'll refer them to the correct people. And if you want to find out, I'm sure you can get the same study and look it over and come back to the next meeting with your questions.
I will.
Mr. Chairman, those documents will be posted online, as is all the information and plans pertaining to this hearing this evening. So once we receive it, it'll be posted prior to the meeting for the public to view, since they are not here this evening.
And I encourage you to go on the website and find them and make notes and come to the next meeting and ask the questions.
Well, hopefully it's in person.
Well, we can't guarantee that, and right now I'm not even gonna.
It is in person.
Gonna
He could come.
make a guess at that.
He could come tonight. It's person.
Well, I didn't want to jeopardize you, Lisa, but have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments for Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Beauvais?
Yes. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Say your name and your address, please.
Sure. Roseanne Elicata and husband Frank Slogeris, 66 Glenview Drive, Kensington. What assurance against construction debris runoff during rainstorms entering our backyards, i.e. Glenview Drive, are being planned?
The plans include a detailed sedimentation and erosion control plan that's implemented as soon or prior, actually, so the site being opened up and construction started. Those areas include siltation fences along the perimeter of all construction areas. The detention area for that area, specifically area 3, which will drain towards that area, will be used as a temporary sedimentation structure. So sediments that are coming through the storm drains will be collected, cleaned, and through the sedimentation or through the detention area, which will be used as a temporary sedimentation structure. The other thing is, and this is the prerogative of the commission, but if they wanted to, they could require monthly reports from the developer on the implementation and the control of the sedimentation and erosion control measures to make sure they are properly in place. But the plan's rather extensive. They put notes about periodic cleaning during heavy storms, maintenance, stuff like that. So there's a lot of measures in the plans.
Right. Already some of our backyards get already flooded during rainstorms, especially the area in Glenview Drive that juts up against the Ragged Mountain and subsequently the area where you're planning on building. Just to let you know, there's already a lot of rain that comes into our backyards, rainstorms rather. Okay. And another question, has there been a study to see the effects of the additional traffic on the Chamberlain Highway, which is a state highway?
Again, that's more of a planning and zoning issue, but I know the developer has a traffic engineer retained, provide a traffic report. This project is large enough to trigger a state traffic permit, and all that stuff will be addressed as part of this traffic report.
Okay. Fire department access. How about fire department access? Very important issue.
Hopefully with the road improvements on West Lane and the boulevard type entrance into the site, we're going to be able to have health and public safety access into the site. better than what's out there now, because when cars park on both sides of West Lane, there's very little vehicular traffic that's permitted. So hopefully by putting the parking lot in and doing some improvements in the road, we're going to be able to provide better access, at least up on West Lane into our site.
And again, these are all planning and zoning questions that really, we can't answer these. We have no, no reason to answer these questions because it's not part of our commission.
Okay, good. So we'll bring it up to planning and zoning? Is that how
That's
we?
correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the answer to your question, my questions.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else? No?
Mr. Chairman, at this point, I would recommend the commission continue the public hearing until the March meeting, which is the first Tuesday of March.
No.
March 2nd.
Now, that's only 2 weeks away. You're gonna have the
3 weeks.
3 weeks away. You're gonna have the,
Yeah, the report is basically done. I've reviewed it. I'm sending it back to Jen with comments. She should probably have it ready for the next week. First thing I'll do is get Jim a copy and get Lisa a copy so she can get it on the website.
all right.
And before we break, I just want to thank the commission for the special meeting. I know it was kind of tough with all the snow around here, and I know some of you guys.
Yeah, we have a couple guys who are plowing. They needed their rest.
So, Steve, thank you for making the fort.
So with that being said, Attorney,
Sorry, Rick's here too. Rick's a commissioner, he's here as well.
yes.
Yes.
Attorney Sutton, you have any other comments?
No, we just want to make sure that the public hearing stays open to the next meeting.
Right, I'm gonna have a motion to continue public hearing to the next meeting.
I'll make a motion, Commissioner Rogan, to continue the public hearing for application 20-12W to the meeting in March.
Have a second.
Commissioner Pavano seconds it.
Can I have all in favor?
Aye.
Rick?
Commissioner White votes yes.
All opposed? No? Passed. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to have a motion to open the public hearing for application 20-13WF.
I'll make a motion to the application for 20-13WF.
Have a second. Second? You gotta say,
Commissioner Pavano seconds.
all in favor?
Aye.
Who's up for the application?
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that Web Associates and Todd Clark will be videoing in.
Okay.
Hopefully they are there. Hello?
Clint Webb is on.
Mr. Webb, are you there?
You muted?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Hello.
State your name, please.
All right, my name is Clinton Webb. I'm an environmental scientist who's been engaged to work on this project with Todd Clark and Sebastian Amenta, who's our engineer. I think you've met Todd. Sebastian and I are recently joined this team. And so just to make sure I have a good understanding, I'm just going to share with you what I think the project is and how we got to this point, and feel free to embellish or correct me. But basically, I think the applicant, Mr. Olson, had done quite a bit of work stabilizing the banks, eroding banks on his property on the stream, on Belcher Brook, as well as his existing pond and so forth. And if you look at the survey map, I'm assuming everybody has a copy of that in front of them. Yeah, so anyway, without the benefit of coming to to the town or to the wetlands to get an application approved to do that work. Subsequently, the town issued him a cease and desist. So he did, I guess, stop work, but he had actually done quite a bit from my visits to the site. So what Sebastian Amenta has, as an engineer, he did a flood study to see what if any impacts there might be downstream from all these activities. And you all have a copy of that, and he can briefly summarize that for you. And we've been working with Todd Clark to come up with a restoration plan. And so what you have before you tonight is an alternative that we've developed, and I want to present to the commission. And if we can agree to it, or and maybe with some suggestions, recommendations, and ideas on your part as well, we can get this thing completed, this whole project completed, and get all the disturbed areas stabilized. Does that kind of summarize what's been going on for, I don't know how long, how many months?
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. That's, we understand that you guys are out there quite a bit, or lately anyways, and, yeah, if you want to, Jim, do you have any specific questions?
Clint, perhaps we can walk the commission through the site.
Yeah, so that's what I'd like to do now. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we evaluated the FEMA data for this area, which is very confusing and incomplete. And I'll let Subby, you are on, aren't you? I see somebody named Sebastian there, so I assume he's here. Anyway,
I'm on, Clint. I'm
okay,
on. You let me know and I'll speak whenever you want.
Okay, so we had Mr. Amenta model it for existing conditions and various flood rates up to what used to be called the 100-year flood. And now it's the flood of record, I think is what they call it. But basically, we found some issues. There's the conditions upstream of the culvert under Tollgate Road that creates a kind of a backwater pressure on the water velocities coming through. Plus, there's a water main hanging down below the road, exposed, with deteriorating insulation on it, by the way, Jim. And there's a picture of it in the report, which also exasperates that. So if you need more detail, I'll have Sebi address that. But basically what it does is it creates a much higher velocity for the first 50 to 100 feet into the site. And then because of the pond and the broad floodplain in this area, it dissipates back to normal pretty quickly before it actually leaves Mr. Olson's site. But what it does is it has this highly erosive energy between Tollgate Road and his existing house. So well, he had the right idea on how to go about this. He just didn't do it correctly. He didn't do it jurisdictionally correctly. You stopped him before he was able to finish the last piece that has no protection on it. I don't know why he did say that to last. It's the section that you see to the water side of the existing house plan. So that currently has subsidence of the building, of the footings, and it's the only part that isn't hasn't been riprapped as of yet. So in addition to all the work that he's done previously, we are proposing that riprap be added to that section, and so that the whole channel would be protected. And in order to compensate for that incursion into part of Belcher Brook, actually has two stream channels here around the existing pond, kind of a very unusual arrangement. So where you can see the crosshatch part on the island would be removed down to the same elevation as the bottom of the stream to compensate for that area. And in that particular spot, it's as much for carrying the flood flow as it is for flood storage. So my focus has been on the areas where he's disturbed and or filled wetlands. And I'm proposing, or to the applicant, is that he remove a number of areas of sediment and debris out of the regulated area, both the wetlands and the upland review area, and material in those piles that's suitable to be moved over to the site and graded and stabilized would be taken over to that bubble area that you see proposed disposal area. Unsuitable material, any debris, because he did clean out the channel a little bit. There's a lot of chunks of pavement that have probably come down off the road over the 50 or 60 or 70 years since this thing has been built and everything. And so some of that material, we would want him to take it off site and dispose of it properly. In our site visit, I noted that there's just a little bit of sediment that has collected at the nose of where the two stream channels come back together. And that can be removed with a small bucket from the island up. And I just think it's not critical, that it come out there, but it wasn't there, a year ago. So I'd like to see it taken out and moved over to the disposal area. And then there's a big pile of material right in the driveway that should also go into the area as well. The area most critical is at the exit of the stream from his property. He has filled in, rather than dug out, floodplain wetlands, and that's in the blue and red hatching coloring. And there's also debris piled, and the surveyors noted those topo lines indicate that there's an actual elevated pile. And that was a shrub, what we would call scrub wetland in a very saturated floodplain area, wetland area joining, that was probably, or is probably, inundated, fairly often during the course of the year when there's a big stream flow in the area. And it's also taken away flood storage as well. So we're proposing that we'll take all that material out of those two areas, and again, whatever suitable can go on his upland area and be graded and stabilized. And what I think would be appropriate is for the blue area, would be lowered back down in elevation, lower than the adjacent upland review area, and restored to its existing flood storage capabilities, and that it be planted not only with a good wetland seed mix, but also I'd like to see probably 10 or so wetland shrubs, and, that are container grown from a reputable wetland nursery, put in there as well to kind of restore that habitat. And we can, if that is acceptable to the commission, I will either to staff, or if we continue the meeting till next month, I'll give you a detailed list, and we'll do a couple blow-ups of these areas, just to show you where, how the grading would look like with a cross section or a profile, showing, how we would like to see it finished off.
Can I ask a question at this point?
Sure.
Commissioner Rogan would like to know, could you be present at the next meeting to show us in person?
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, everything, this is Chairman Neiman, everything that he's saying, Jimmy, you want to see that on file?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Webb and I have had several discussions over the past couple of months in terms of his analysis of what's happened there, along with Mr. Amenta's work of analyzing the flood through the area. I think they're certainly on the right track. Mr. Webb and I have had discussions, and I think he briefly mentioned it this evening, that there is one area that's yet to be stabilized in terms of the embankment that's essentially immediately adjacent to Mr. Olson's house, which, I agree should be stabilized to protect, the existing conditions there. So perhaps at this point, Mr. Webb, if, you can follow up and put the finishing touches on the items that you've spoken about this evening, provide us with a revised print, provide us with the planting schedule, type and locations, and hopefully we can put the violation to bed next month, and hope for an early spring where we can get things finished up.
We got one last question. Is Commissioner Rogan's submission of Army Corps permit request? What's the deal with that?
I didn't understand.
Clint, did you hear that?
No, I couldn't. It got garbled.
Okay, my question is Commissioner Rogan's submission of Army Corps permit request.
Have you, Clint, the question, I don't know whether you heard it or not, was the status of any permitting with, other agencies beyond the town level?
Yeah, no, we would, once we have a solid plan that's approved by the commission, then we need to also submit to the Army Corps as you know.
Would it come before and go through them first?
Once we approve the plan, then we'll.
Okay. Would he have to come back to us with the Army Corps?
He would not require a revised permit as long as the Corps agreed and permitted what has been presented to this commission.
Yeah, if they requested, some kind of significant change, then, yeah, we would have to come back and make sure you were comfortable with that change and get your sign off on that.
But is that everything that we ask? Is that agreeable with you and the applicant?
Yes, I'm sure. I'm not sure if Mr. Olson's on the phone or not, but, yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly what, that's exactly what we should be doing.
Okay.
And it is, all these, digital meetings, everybody's doing them a little differently. And, and there doesn't seem to be, at least, in the 4 different ones I've been involved in, doesn't seem to be a perfect solution, but it is difficult in this scenario, not being able to have a digital, version of whatever the presentation piece is, up on the, up on the screen. And I'm not volunteering to do that because I'm too much of a digital dinosaur, but I've seen it done elsewhere. So I think it's actually important if I do come in
Well,
next month.
I was just gonna ask Mr. Rogan's request, if you can show up, I think we, as a commission, we'd all like to see what your final rendition is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll try to get that in, sooner than later, so you have a little time to review it and absorb it and come up with, good questions.
Gary, do you have anything else? Rick, do you have any questions?
No, I think the questions I might have, it'd be better to wait until we're all in the same room. So I'm all set for now. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any audience or citizens out there who have a question? No? If not, I'd like to have a motion to continue application 20-13WF till next meeting.
Commissioner Bellano makes a motion to continue application 20-13WF.
Commissioner Rogan will second.
All in favor? See you next month.
Okay, all right, stay safe.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to have a motion to open the public hearing for application 20-14WF.
Commissioner Rogan will open application 20-14WF.
Can I have a second?
Commissioner Bellano, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who's up?
That's me. My trustee assistant. I got this. Just in case.
You okay, Lisa?
Yeah. Right. My name is Eric Turbo from AI Engineers. I'm here representing the town of Berlin for the rehabilitation of the Glen Street bridge over the Medibasset River. The project location, Glen Street over Medibasset or Sabine River, as it's also known. It's between Robindale Drive and Sheldon Street location. The existing conditions, it was originally built in 1957, and then one of the barrels was replaced with a concrete box culvert, 12 foot by 5 foot concrete box sometime in the 1980s, I believe it was, in the 80s. So there's two barrels right now. It's this 12 foot by 5 foot concrete box and a parallel 11 foot 7 inch by 7 foot 5 inch tall corrugated metal arch pipe. There's some utilities. There's a gas main in the roadway that runs, beneath the road surface above the two barrels. And there's a sewer that's mounted on the outside, in the open at the outlet side. Right now, there's a posted weight restriction of 7 tons due to structural integrity of the corrugated metal pipe, and it's on a 6-month inspection. Normally, it's every 2 years. Now it's on a 6-month inspection, special inspection from DOT. The existing arch pipe is deteriorated. There's the bottom invert and corner plates are they talk about extensive laminar rust. There's perforations and reverse curvature. Basically, the bottom's getting rotted out. It's got holes in it and it's starting to bubble. The stream water is piping, so it's actually the stream water, while it flows, some of it flows through the actual pipe. It also flows around the outside of the pipe, underneath of it. So that's taking a lot of the sediment and fines. and leaving voids. There's no cutoff walls, so right now there's no vertical wall to stop that from happening underneath of the, on the inlet side or the outlet side. So the purpose and need of this project is to rehabilitate that existing, corrugated metal pipe, and provide full structural capacity for safety. The proposed improvements, so you can see, these are the two, just to kind of orientate everybody, north is to the right on this. There's the two barrels. This is on the right-hand side, the north side. The river flows from the west to the east, and this north side is the corrugated metal pipe, and the other one's the concrete box. The proposed improvements are to line the existing corrugated metal pipe with a new structural steel pipe that will have full capacity. The annular space between the two will be grouted with the, there's a specific grout that we use for that type of thing, and they pump it in. Any voids beforehand will be filled. So all those empty spaces underneath will be all filled. We're gonna construct cutoff walls at the inlet side and the outlet side as well to prevent the piping, first of all, to keep the water actually in the culvert, and then also to prevent any scour issues, make sure that pipe stays stable. For fisheries enhancements, because whenever you raise the invert of the pipe, the fish have, it's a fisheries issue. The pipe's already kind of perched, and it makes it that much more difficult. So we're going to raise that existing culvert is gonna right now the corrugated metal pipe sits a little bit lower than the concrete box. It's going to be higher when we're done. So we're going to use the concrete box for fisheries enhancements. We're going to use we're going to put in fish baffles every 10 feet. Which is basically a board with a V-notch in there. The V-notches will alternate back and forth. It'll hold back water within that box and provide pools. And there's higher velocity of water where the V-notch is. The fish swim up, and then they have a rest area, and they can swim up the next stage and work their way up through the box. Pretty standard type of fisheries enhancement. On the outlet side, we're going to provide 2 rock weirs. So those will be used to step the water down, much in the same way as the fish baffles, and that'll give a couple of step pools basically for the fish to get into the outlet of the concrete box. And we're also going to use the cutoff wall that will be on the inlet side of the corrugated metal pipe. We're gonna extend that a little bit higher to basically prevent the water from entering, any low flows from entering that corrugated metal pipe, and make sure it goes over to the concrete box where we have the fisheries. Environmental impacts, we have permanent wetland impacts are 50 square feet, and that consists of the rack weirs and the cutoff walls. So it's actually, the rack weirs are really fisheries enhancements, so that's going to enhance the stream. But temporary wetland impacts, 1,140 feet, that's a work area, construction access roads. Floodplain impacts, there's 280 square feet permanent. Same thing, it's all these rack weirs and cutoff walls. The temporary 5,330, and that consists of, obviously the floodplain's a lot bigger than the wetland area, so that includes the access roads coming down. The access roads will be constructed, standard practice, with geotextile underneath, stone on top, and then they restore everything back to when they leave. The volume, 7 cubic yards of excavation within the floodplain, the 53 cubic yards of fill. So there is a net 46 cubic yards of net fill in the floodplain. The elevation difference that we have a hydraulics engineer is actually on the phone if we need him. So he did the whole hydraulic analysis. And he looked at, so this is a little bit interesting and a little bit unique. So what happened was the FEMA floodplain study, it's old, it's from back before that 1980s box culvert got put in. And there was 2 corrugated metal pipes, so it wasn't as good. So bear with me a little bit, it's a kind of a unique thing. So the existing upstream, mostly it's the upstream, the downstream, all the changes are pretty small, it's not as impactful. The upstream existing floodplain elevation that we calculated, based on his engineering or his hydraulic analysis, 126.35 feet. The published FEMA study says that that floodplain, 100-year floodplain elevation is 129.6, which is 3.25 feet higher than what's actually going on out there in real life because of that box culvert flows more water. Our proposed will be 127.23. So it's going to be an increase above what's currently out there right now of less than a foot. It'll be 0.88 feet. It'll be less than what that published FEMA study is on record right now because it's not up to date. So that's, for permitting, we're coming here to the Wetlands Commission. And then, we obviously, we have an Army Corps permit that's being drafted and pretty much ready to go. We already started fisheries coordination with state, Connecticut DEP. And, we already kind of know the types of things they like to see. So we want to make sure that this thing gets approved. So we put in all our fisheries enhancement. So pretty much in good shape. We're looking for approval from you. And then we will move and direction from you, and we will move forward Army Corps, and take it from there.
So the pluses and minuses is the elevation of the current river going to change it up?
So the 100-year floodplain elevation will go up 0.88 feet on the upstream side. So there will be an increase in floodplain elevation, not according to the FEMA study. So if anyone looked at what's on record, it's still way below what they talk about in the FEMA study.
And the Army Corps will weigh in on that also, correct?
Yeah, they will, yep.
So you're not doing any work to the concrete culvert?
Oh, the concrete culvert, we're putting in the fish baffles.
Right, well, I mean,
And we're doing a little repair.
okay.
So it's just all kind of superficial. There's some spalling. We'll clean that up and make sure, because we need to divert.
I'm saying you have to divert the water.
Yeah, into
while
the
you're-
other, yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah. So when we first we'll divert the water, through the concrete box, do our whole,
Do the metal.
lining, and then we'll switch it and we'll do the rock weirs, we'll do the baffles, and we'll repair that box just to make sure everything's nice with that and it'll last.
And there's no work being done on the Glen Street itself?
Nothing on Glen Street. We don't plan on touching. That's one of the goals of the project, and the town wanted was, don't mess with the utilities, don't dig up the road. Just line the thing and make it safe.
And the road will be open to traffic.
That's what I'm saying, because, that's,
Yeah, there may be, there may be a point in time where, obviously construction access, it's not very wide, there's not a big
Right.
shoulder. We provided kind of like a parking area for them up at the top of the road where they'll, establish. And then there may be a time when if they're in there, in order to make that liner fit,
Yep.
if they have to cut some of the existing invert out, they might make the decision that, we don't feel like this is gonna be safe for the public to be driving on, because once you start cutting the invert out, that weakens everything. So, at that time, we'll coordinate with the town and we'll probably do it in sections, maybe a third at a time or something, and make sure we keep, one lane alternating one way.
is that Pax Farm still up there? Is that,
It's an abandoned farm.
well, it's the old Pax, but it's the old, yeah.
Time frame on this, July-ish sort of thing, I would imagine?
Yes, yep, in the, during that window when we can work in the stream unconfined, so it'll happen this summer.
There are certain restrictions levied by both the Corps and or the state DEP in terms of in-stream work, so that's something we'll have to do.
Yeah, so that coincides with because of the fish and the spawning. So, there's a certain window when it's okay to kind of make a mess and cause turbidity in the water, and they don't want you to mess around with it outside of that. So we'll work, because they're gonna be unconfined in the stream, moving stuff around, it's gotta be within that window.
Vegetation removal on either side, is it minimal?
Yeah, minimal. I don't even think we're offering 4 access roads just in case for construction purposes. I don't think a contractor's gonna do it because all it does is cost them a lot of money to put those in, and it takes time, and then they have to restore it afterward. I think they can do all the work from the 2 access roads on the north side, on this side, but we provided, if you did put them in, this is what they would look like, this is how you would do it. Sort of a safe bet, but, and then, yeah, so everything will be restored. We could work out something with, so some sort of, we had the same, Scott Stevens did all the wetland flagging, and Jen, so we could do, plantings if needed, but right now it's all just kind of low growing, regular sort of vegetation.
Jimmy, you're happy with this?
Yes, we are at this point. We're anxious to make the decision.
Yeah.
Rick, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I think you said the flood, this will increase flood levels. Does that, would our approval then include approving a variance to our regulation?
I don't know how to answer that because of this kind of strange situation where we're increasing, physically, we're increasing that flood, 100-year flood elevation, but not above what FEMA says it is. So it's sort of in this weird kind of gray area. I don't know, I've had a discussion with with Micah Hearn about it, and so there's a normally, I'll say, if we did increase the floodplain elevation above what FEMA, the FEMA study said, we would do a conditional letter of map revision and then a letter of map revision. And we would actually, or the town would have us go and change the FEMA study and revise all the maps so that everything makes sense and it all works out to what we, came up with and our changes we made. This sort of falls in a strange spot. We're still below, and that's always the concern is raising it too high. It never got modified to lower that flood elevation back when the box culvert got put in. I think so. What we kind of decided is we can wind up making that decision at a later time, whether or not the town feels it's going to be necessary to do a map revision or not, and what are the benefits of that. And, and the costs, and is it really going to be worthwhile, and does it provide anything for the town, basically?
Would the Army Corps have a weigh in on this if they look at one, see the other?
They may talk about it, but they would probably, what they might do is say, we're gonna recommend that you get a map revision. And which that always happens at the end. So I don't know if they can I honestly don't know if they have the jurisdiction to say if our permit is conditional based on. They might, but then there's always you actually have to
we'd have to wait to let them weigh in, and then based upon their direction.
Yeah.
If it required a revision on this board.
Right, and then you gotta think about, I'll be totally honest with you, there's towns that are like, all right, sure, we'll take care of that, and then they never do. And is it right? No, it's not right, but it happens. I'm not saying that's what you guys wanna do, but, I think if they force you and they say, and they put it in writing saying, then you might wanna really consider actually following through. If they don't, it may not matter, right? It's not really that big of a deal. We kind of talked about it. We talked about, and we could, and we can even have that discussion, with the, you know, even further, but we talked about the benefits and if they provide any additional, you know, area for, so the channel, the way that this river kind of is that the channel, it's very steep, so that elevation, it doesn't affect distance very much out from the actual stream channel. Because it's a very vertical stream channel, it's got some steep embankments, so it's not like somebody's gonna, you know,
You're not.
get a bunch of property, yeah, like, they're not gonna have all these extra, you know, I'm gonna gain another acre of usable property, great, no, you're gonna get like, you know, a foot along the stream, it doesn't really add anything to anybody, it doesn't provide it, you know, it's sort of,
But it doesn't subtract either.
no. Say that again, I'm sorry, I'm not following. It's not adding or subtracting. Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of a wash, and it's kind of, I don't even think it's worth the effort. Normally, you know, I'd say, oh yeah, it's well worth it, let's document the right thing, but for this situation, I don't think it's worth it.
The difference in elevation or the change or the discrepancy,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, because the channel itself is a gradient that it is, the actual impact upstream is basically insignificant because of the nature of the channel.
Correct, yeah. Does that answer your question, Rick?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm not an expert in this, obviously. I would like to fully understand what it is we'd be approving. I mean, I think you said there's a net fill in the floodplain resulting from this project. Is that correct?
That is correct, yep, we're putting in those rock weirs are filling in the floodplain, there's also, the actual culvert that we're lining, that fills, you know, in that same volume, in that same area as well. So there is fill in the floodplain, yes.
Well, again, my concern is the impact, you know, I think our regulation says you're not supposed to do that, that you're not supposed to raise the flood level. And clearly we're doing that by having a net fill in the floodplain. So, you know, and I understand what you're saying, that all of this is underneath the FEMA level. And obviously that's good. I would just like to fully understand what it means. And, you know, would we be in compliance with our regulation, or would we be granting a variance? I guess that's at the end of the day, that's what I'd like to understand. And I don't know who can answer that question.
Refresh our memories, in terms of the volume of fill, the increase in the volume in the floodplain was approximately how many cubic yards?
It was 46 cubic yards.
Okay. Is there, and I'm assuming there is, a scenario where you could balance that impact on the fill in the floodplain? Immediately adjacent?
So that is possible. And with, from an environmental standpoint, I would recommend not doing that because it causes more disturbance to the wetlands and the water course by excavating additional areas that are already established. And, you know, so I would recommend against that from an environmental standpoint. However, yes, that's possible. We could go and dig, you know, a trench upstream and compensate for that volume.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to impact, it's not going to have that much of an impact on the increase in the water store, you know, in the water flood, yeah, in the 100-year flood, because it's more a factor of the reduced size of the cross-sectional area of this new pipe we're putting in. So it's not really so much about the volume of fill, it's more about the hydraulic capacity of the new pipe.
Yeah, but the commission in the past has followed the zero increase in flood storage.
Yes.
So it's a decision that the commission has to make at this point, but from a
Okay,
staff standpoint, it's something that we recommend.
okay, yep. So it sounds like, I'm sorry, the gentleman on through the,
Rick White.
Commissioner
Rick,
White.
yes,
He's one of our commissioners.
so you're probably the most, you kind of honed in on this. Is there, I'm thinking, I know the answer to this, that you're not comfortable like making that decision right now. Like, is there something else that you would like to know or see or review that would make you feel okay about it?
Well, I can make a comment if you'd like, Commissioner Rogan. What I think we're all concerned with is Dr. Ringrose, how it's going to affect his property.
Okay, and that's on the, he's right.
He's upstream.
Yes.
In the southwest.
Okay. Yeah, he's the, yes, all right.
Yeah, I think if there was compensating floodway excavation, I think I would be comfortable that we're in compliance with our regulation.
I think my question would be is the effect that your fill is gonna have, is it gonna be, what's the actual effect it could bring?
It would, in 100-year storm,
Yeah,
you would see the water surface elevation 0.88 feet higher than what it is now today. So that elevation is 127.23.
what would that take you to at its max?
So that, I mean, you're out, this is 130 is out by your sanitary sewer easement, so you're out in this area, and this is all 120, so, I mean, the back of his yard, floods now in a 100-year storm, and it would still flood, right, in a 100-year storm.
But would it be significant?
This is Mike Masterluca. I'm the hydraulic engineer for AI. And I wanted to chime in on when he's talking about the flood storage. We're also limited on property access also. We don't have any, I would say, easements, correct? On those adjacent properties to do any work. We would have to obtain easements or some rights for those. And we are lowering Dr. Ringrose's water surface adjacent to that area. By lowering the water surface, we're gaining some flood storage from what was published. What was published shows it going all the way up the property at 129. So you're going to see a 3-foot reduction, more or less.
Right. Over what was published.
Yes.
So there's the potential that that's the solution, is revise the map to the new, to the new, there could be a map revision to this new design and as-built construction, which would take the FEMA flood elevation from the 129.6 and bring it down to our new proposed after this project, which would be 127.3, and it would actually lower it. So that's
Lower is more desirable by far.
Is that something you could do, or you have to go to FEMA, or what would be the process?
It's a process, and it's about, I think we ballparked it at like $60,000-$70,000. Like, it's not cheap. It's a whole bunch of work.
Right, and I understand the money cost, but I'm also worried about how long it's gonna take to get that process done.
Okay.
Jim, the way you're talking, this needs to be done like yesterday.
Well, that would happen after. Like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but you could say move forward, but we definitely want to do this, map. But it's gonna cost the town this 60, 70, 80 grand. You could, I guess you could say move forward and we're okay with it, or if you want to see, I'm trying to think of another way. Mike, I'm trying to think of another way to
Yes, Eric, there's one way of approaching that is by a condition, and maybe the Army Corps could give us a condition also if they have an issue with that, is have a condition that the a map revision has to be in place before close out of the project?
Yep.
I mean, the project moves forward with the inception that after everything's built, you go for a letter of map revision, which includes the post-construction, because we're in a transition, kind of a transition area. When I spoke to FEMA, is the old box or the old arch pipe was considered a, I would quote unquote, existing condition. It predates the effective flood date of 75. So when they installed the box in 1980, that was considered a post, and it considers as alterations been done to the floodplain. Now we're going in and proposing something new, so it's considered a proposed condition now. So we would, that's why I had to go through the model and update the models that were provided me by FEMA to include the box. And that's what showed me a drop in elevation of water surface. I'm like, something's odd. And I wasn't thinking was there was a small opening before, now there's a larger one. And what they had opening before was, it was like a hole, theoretically a hole that was the same volume, meaning area, opening area as the, what do you want to call it, as the arch pipe, equivalent opening area.
Right.
So you got a restriction, and we went through several alternatives to get this water to go down.
Right. Yeah, to jump in on that, Mike, so that's something that we worked out, you know, we started looking at the original, you know, RFP that was put out was, you know, had a study and it said line, because it's cheap, quick and easy, do it, it's, you know, it'll work. However, you know, obviously that's gonna shrink the hydraulic opening, it'll raise the 100-year floodplain, the 100-year flood upstream. We tried, we looked at doing a spray-on liner and making it really smooth because it wouldn't be quite as restrictive. But we have professional load rating experts at AI, and they said, you're not gonna get past Connecticut DOT load rating, it's still gonna be posted for 7 tons. Is the town okay with that? Like, it'll be fine physically, like they've done it and seen it and it's okay, but Connecticut DOT won't approve it. It's absolutely not, we need to get rid of that sign. That's the whole point of the project, is get rid of that sign, get DOT off our back. So that wasn't gonna work. We tried, we looked at smooth interior pipes, all kinds of crazy alternatives to try to get this thing to work. And we're like, you know what? It ain't gonna work. You either rip it out and open trench it and just put a box or a new pipe or something in, deal with the gas main, deal with, like, now we gotta build new end walls, and reconstruct the whole thing, or we just line it and deal with that increase.
Hey, Eric?
Yeah.
The other thing we looked into was improving the inlets of the culverts also, because you're in inlet, it's called inlet control because you have headwater behind the pipe. The tailwater, because it's at a steep slope, the pipe is kind of at a steep slope. It's the water upstream is controlling all the everything going on with the culverts. So by improving the inlet, will improve, theoretically, give it a nice, better smooth through the culvert to lower the water surface.
Yeah, so inlet control is basically, that's the restriction. So the water surface is actually above the inlet of the pipe, and then the water flows into the pipe, and you can kind of see, like, as it goes in, like, it actually has a void of air, like, inside the culvert, because and that's the restriction. So if you chamfer the edges, you try champering, we try rounding them to try to get that water in the pipe as fast as possible.
Hey, Eric?
It's all good. Yep.
Now, we are also, that's getting back to my point before, was we are constricted to property now because we don't have any easements. And we did not look at the option of, like you said, flood storage or doing something in somebody else's property, because we're kind of constricted to our easement, basically.
Yeah, our right of way. Yeah, we're trying to stay within the footprint of the right of way. We have a little bit of temporary road, you know, that goes down, and we need some temporary rights, very minimal, but we would need, obviously, if we're gonna work on someone's property, dig holes and compensated storage and all that. So it's really not I wanna like kind of, just reiterate that it's not really the volume so much of fill, but it's more the restrictive opening. And it's a function of, do we want to rip the pipes out and put a new one? Or do we put in that liner and say it's good? And we had I worked at Condot for years, and there was another hydraulic engineer, and he calls it hydraulic voodoo. Because it's all sort of statistical analysis, and, 0.88 feet is really not that much, what's the reality of it? It's sort of, but you have your rules, and they're there for a good reason. So you have to decide whether or not you're okay with saying, this is gonna be, let's move forward. I guess we could move forward and see what Army Corps has to say about it.
I guess what the conundrum is here is that, yes, we gotta get this done, and we gotta get it done as quick as possible, but like Rick says, are we?
We've got
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Because again, we don't want anything like this to come back and bite us.
Yeah, I hear
you. So how should we handle this, Jerry? That's, we're looking for you to, I know you want to get it done, but.
Yeah. Do you maybe want more? I could have more of a visual representation for you of what the numbers mean. Because right now we're talking sort of arbitrarily, all right, we got this 0.88 feet, and what that looks like. I could, we could do more. It's not going to be we're not going to survey all that, but we'll use like GIS contours.
Did you say you could do some upstream work to deal with that 0.88 increase?
There's nothing we can do that makes sense other than replace the pipe in its entirety. That's really that's our limiting thing, is that restrictive opening.
Hey, Eric?
Yes.
The other thing that plays a role here too is the steepness of the upstream, like he was saying about the steepness. You're like losing. There's no really, I don't know if you're going to gain any flood storage or anything because of the steepness of the riverbed.
Oh, of the riverbed, yeah, that's another factor. Yeah, the river is not like a meandering slope. Like it's a pretty substantial grade elevation change.
Oh, I know exactly.
Yeah. So.
I mean, like Eric was saying, it's like playing with numbers. I'm sorry to say that.
Well, I mean, I understand, Jim, we have FEMA saying one thing. But you're saying that we're gonna do this, and it's against our.
Yeah, that's a good rule.
But are we doing something?
Let's do this. Let's continue the hearing.
Okay.
Perhaps you can provide the commission with some additional information in terms of the footprints of the impacts, where they're actually located upstream.
Okay.
And then we can investigate the potential to move forward following the completion of the project, going through the process to revise that.
Commissioner, can I suggest something, Eric?
Go ahead.
I could try modeling some kind of storage within Mr. Ringrose's property, but there's gotta, I could get it to work per se, then there's gonna have to be some compensation for property of how to work that in. You understanding where I'm?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, we can dig a big hole in his backyard, and maybe he'll love that, and he'll donate the property, and be like, sure, have at it, or maybe he'll be like, oh, yeah, right. I know he is a big, fisheries guy, and that was part of our reason for just addressing all the fisheries up front, in case when we started this, we thought he would be sitting here looking at it going, what about the fish, So we kind of handled all that, but yeah, I mean, we could, I think probably the best thing is right now, I'm getting the feeling like you guys don't have enough information to feel comfortable with your decision. So we could graphically show that in a clearer way, since that's kind of the hang-up, we'll show, like just what it means, what the numbers represent. And then you could kind of say, no, we're gonna have to do the map revision to make all this kosher, or you could say, have at it, or, whichever direction, or unless you feel like, what, it doesn't matter what that shows. We want that map revision, and regardless, we'll just move forward and do it right now.
Well, I mean, we're not gonna do that, but I also don't want to be caught,
Okay, let's take it one step at a time. We'll do step A at this point.
Right.
Continue the hearings, get additional information.
Yeah. Rick, do you have anything else?
No, I appreciate the help, the input, and the discussion. Thank you.
Mike, I don't know how, I mean, I'll get this stuff over to Jim beforehand. So, perhaps if there's some questions or someone's like, anything glaring that you kind of want addressed, and then, when we actually come to the meeting, like, it'll be all kind of smooth. Yeah.
Commissioner Rogan, I would make a suggestion, I don't know if it's appropriate, that somebody contact Dr. Ringrose and get his input, because I think he's the only one that's really directly affected here. He could really help with this.
Well, we could do that, or we could see what the plan you come up with.
I think we have to see the additional, receive the additional information first.
And if they feel they can't do anything without contacting him, we can't, but I think until then, let's just.
Throw it out there.
No, I agree with you, but,
He's one of the impacted property owners. So as part of like our standard, that, the town would do the whole right-of-way acquisition process and negotiate and all that stuff. But normally I would sit down with any property owners and show them the plan and answer any questions so they know exactly what's going on. So we can maybe take that opportunity to kind of go over it with them.
There were, all the abutting property owners were notified of the public hearing, and we have to hear.
well, that sounds good. Is there anybody, in audience of citizens who'd like to ask the commissioner, our agent, any questions? I guess not. So I need a motion to continue the public hearing till next month.
I'll make a motion Commissioner Rogan will make a motion to continue the application of the public hearing to 20-14 WF.
Can I have a second?
Commissioner Pavano seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you.
All that info back. Well, first of all, we know what to do.
I need a motion to close the public hearing. Right?
No, you're continuing.
Oh, that's right, we continue.
Yep.
All right, now we finally got a regular meeting. First application is application 21-01W, proposal by task force to construct a truck maintenance facility and associated improvements in a regulated area on lots 6A, 32, 42, block 83C, Webster Square Road. Sorry we took so long, but we had important things to take care of, so you would state your name and
You're not important.
Yeah. Yes, please.
So good evening. For the record, my name is Jim Cassidy, principal with the firm of LLC Pearson Cassidy. I'm here tonight representing Pascal Ford. I'd like to start our presentation by just going over some existing site photos we're looking at during our the first map I have up before you is an existing site photo for Pascal Ford. Pascal Ford is located at 250 Webster Square Road. The area outlined in yellow is their entire site. They actually own 3 parcels. There's the one that faces Webster Square Road. Let's say the paint area is the existing building, the existing Ford dealership, with a footprint of about 36,000 square feet. In addition to, they own another parcel to the rear of that that's utilized for overflow and storage of vehicles. And to the back, and then they also recently acquired 63 Woodlawn, Woodlawn Road being up on the top portion here, which they also presently store vehicles. There used to be an industrial building on that property. It was demolished. At this point, there's only a concrete slab from that building remaining, and then some additional paved areas that were around that building. The overall site, apologize. consists of about 10.82 acres. It is, again, it fronts on Woodlawn to the north of the upper portion, fronts on Webster to the west or to the left. On the east, or over in this area to the right, we have the auto body repair facility known as CarStar. And in addition to, on the east, we have existing residents that face along Worthington Ridge. And then to the bottom or to the south is the, I think it's called Movie Showcase Cinema, movie theater on the bottom portion. You can see that a good portion of the site is presently paved. The only thing that's really wooded is our easterly border, where we have a buffer between the existing park lot and the residents off to the east. In addition to, in the center portion, what happens is there's actually a swale. It was picking up stormwater runoff from the industrial building and from that parking area, bringing it into that swale, conveying it in a westerly direction and then down in a southerly direction through a swale where it eventually got into the drainage system that continues out in a kind of a southwesterly direction to the drainage system in Webster Square Road. We did have Rich Starsky of New England Soil Science, or New England Environmental, sorry, go out and delineate the wetlands on this property. He identified 2 wetlands areas, one being up at this northeasterly corner with a portion on our property. In addition to is the drainage swale that's flowing in a northerly direction. That's also part of that wetland system. This area is a wooded wetlands area, basically a wooded swamp area. Until it gets to the northern direction, it's basically a drainage swale that continues into the drainage system in Woodlawn. There is another small isolated pocket of wetlands in this location towards the center of the site. Again, it's at the very end of the drainage swale before it's picked up into the drainage system. It has an overall area of about 1,120 square feet. Its functional values, I'd say, are kind of limited at this point. It's in the middle of a developed complex of parking areas. In addition to, there's no real vegetation. I don't know if anyone's actually been out to the site, but I took a ride by today just to see what it looks like. I've been fortunately working on this property since about March with COVID. We're kind of on and then off again. But when we look at today, there's just piles of snow around it. It's again in the middle of the parking area. It's full of phragmites. It doesn't have a lot of functional value. I would say the primary functional value at this point is floodwater or stormwater attenuation and groundwater recharge. What we're proposing to do with this site is ask the board, would like to build a new truck repair facility. If anyone's familiar with Tasca, they have 3 different locations, one here in Berlin, they have one in Cranston, Rhode Island, and if you ever go to the one in Cranston, Rhode Island, they have a separate building for just working on trucks. They would like to build a similar facility here, and what they're looking at doing is building this new building. It's this brown rectangle that has a footprint of about 32,495 square feet. So overall, it's about 130 feet wide by about 250 feet deep. The proposal is it to be set up for basically either truck customers or contractors that they work with that they sell a lot of vehicles to. There would be an area to the front of the building that would be for customer parking. In addition to, there'd be a driveway out that front parking area, the trucks would actually be able to pull right into the building. Within the building, there's gonna be a series of lifts, the main access out down through the center with access to those lifts, so they can do all the work inside the building. And then another access door out the back side, so they can exit back out and go all the way through. In addition to, there would be some high bay doors along the west side of the building for access for small school buses and other larger vehicles that they tend to have to repair. The area to the north, where the industrial building is, it would be regraded, repaved, and a new display area would be constructed along that whole front portion of the site, making it a little more uniform rather than trucks just spread all over the place as they are today. We make it a little more uniformly dressed up. In addition to, you see this big, we'll call it the green oval in the center of the site. This is actually a mound that's being built up about 12 feet in elevation. It's actually a display mound for the vehicles that sit on top of it. It would have a sign built into the side of it. So hopefully for vehicles coming down Woodland from Berlin Turnpike, it could actually be a focal point because it is kind of off the main drag. So people will be able to see where this new truck facility is. Access to the truck facility would be through a new curb cut off of Woodlawn. It'd be two-way access into the site, into that front parking area, and then one-way access back out, or they can go back out the main driveway back out to Woodlawn. So these two driveways associated with it. Utilities for the site. Sorry. So right now, there is a gravity sewer main out in Woodlawn. It comes down Woodlawn and it goes actually across the front of our site. What we're proposing to do, because the grades are so flat through here, we're going to actually have a sewer injector pump just outside the building. And then we really don't have, it's almost flat basically from here to the actual lateral that we're going to be tying into Woodlawn. So we just need to get a little boost to get it into that system. Otherwise, we'd have to raise the site up substantially to be able to get a gravity line in. So we're proposing an injector pump on this location. We're also bringing water main in for not only potable water, but also for fire service into the building. That's going to come off of the main Woodlawn also and into the side of the building. For storm drainage, right now, as I mentioned, everything off this site basically sheet flows. A small portion goes to Woodlawn. The majority of it comes to this drainage swale on the back, continues through that drainage swale, and eventually gets into this outlet structure and then into the system. What we're proposing to do is construct a new drainage system around the perimeter of the parking lot. I'm going to just explain that parking area a little bit about this grading. There's a little bit, I believe, history of some environmental issues with the former machine shop or industrial facility that was on the property. So that's why you see the concrete slab still out there. You're not moving the concrete slab. So you'll notice there's no drainage in the center of the site. What we actually done is we graded the parking lot in a way where we're keeping the concrete slab in place. We're going to raise the grade slightly, pitch off to the west, pitch off to the east, beyond the slab. Run this drainage system so it'll pick up the stormwater runoff off this parking area, convey it through a system in our parking lot, and then eventually discharge through an underground infiltration system or detention system, which will then outlet to the outlet structure and then continue on as it does today. We've built some stormwater drainage miles for the proposal here. We find post-development, there's no increase in flow for a 1 through 100-year storm event. It's important to know, again, that the majority of this area is paved today, so we do not have a substantial increase in impervious coverage associated with this. If you actually take a look at the location of the building, it's right in the parking lot, that existing parking lot is the back. So the only real increase is this area off to the west side, and then some additional areas out here in front to the north would be impervious coverage. So what does this mean for wetlands? We are looking at some not only activities within the 50-foot upland review area, but we are looking at direct wetlands impacts. What we'd like to do is that small area of wetlands, 1,140 square feet in the center of the site, we would like to be able to fill in that wetlands area. Again, its primary functions are stormwater attenuation and groundwater recharge. We're proposing an underground system to help promote that. So once again, hold back that stormwater runoff. In addition to, it's an open structure, so it also will be able to promote groundwater recharge, similar to what's occurring today. But that wetlands area would need to be disturbed. That would be a direct activity of 1,120 square feet to the wetlands. In addition to, this is the one I always love to deal with, is the cart before the horse. There's a regulated area around it. So technically, when you fill in the area around it, you have an additional activity within the 50-foot upland review area of 13,439 square feet, but technically, if the wetlands is filled in, then there's no regulated area. So we include it in the application, but if we get permission to fill in the wetlands, then there's no real regulated activity in the upland review area. The other activity would consist of the grading of a new driveway along the easterly side of the property, and then the grading of the connection driveway for the new facility. We're looking at an activity of about 12,650 square feet, only within the 50-foot upland review area. I will note, if you take a look at the industrial facility, there is an existing driveway here that we need to get rid of and regrade. So there's going to be some activity in this area just to take care of that. In addition to, there would be some grading required for the overall development. So there is filling, going on within that 50-foot upland review area. But of the 12,000, approximately 9,000 would be restored to either lawn or back to a wooded area, so back to its natural state. So it's basically a temporary disturbance in that area. It actually would be an improvement because you do get some sheet flooding off the open industrial site and towards that drainage swale, whereas our driveway will collect that water and control it, rather than the way it goes today. So again, about 3/4 of this activity is a temporary activity. The only thing that would be permanent is two sections of the driveway, so about 3,000 square feet of that driveway would be a permanent activity. So with that, I'm going to be brief and I'm going to conclude my presentation, and I'm glad to answer any questions that the commission may have at this point.
Any mitigation needed to be done because of filling in the wetlands?
So within the site itself, it's going to be a little difficult to do. What I've thought about is, in this area, if we can go back and do some wetlands buffers enhancement. The only other place to really look at doing mitigation would be off to the east side of the building. The problem with doing it off to the east side of the building is that you have a buffer to the residential neighborhood. And there's a pretty good slope in this area. So to be able to do mitigation, I got to disturb more of that slope. So it didn't seem appropriate to do it on this side of the building. I think the best way to do it again is to enhance the buffer that's along this east side of the project and that wetlands area.
That would accomplish what we need to do as far as mitigation.
Yeah.
Now, are they gonna have a pressure washing facility? And we've had applications in the past that require different systems if they're gonna pressure wash these vehicles inside the building.
Yeah, so there's a trench drain that runs right down the center of the vehicle. That trench drain's got to drain through the sanitary sewer system, through a grease trap, obviously, or a water separator first. It's an internal structure that'll be within the building.
Now that's within the building, the parking lot's gonna be, and I drove by there today, and there's a couple of but because of the size of this and where we're up against, I don't know what you guys think, but I'd recommend a public hearing. Jim.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend a hearing merely for the fact that there are direct impacts. It sounds as if there's certainly a workable solution to mitigating those, but I think just, again, because of the size.
Size, right, the scope, where it is, yeah.
Again, you wouldn't lose any time. The board could not take an action even if
Right,
it
even if you wanted
was
to.
inclined to do that this evening. So,
We anticipated that, so.
Right. Any other questions, guys?
Rick, do you have any questions?
No, I'm all set. Thank you. I'm having connectivity issues. I don't know if you can hear me, but
Okay. All right, the next one is application 21-01 WF, proposal by Premier Real Estate Services.
Would you guys hold just a minute for me? I don't understand what happened.
yeah, it kept dropping out, but I'm reconnected now. But there seem to be some issues.
Why don't we just move on?
Rick, are you there? Okay. Well, let me start again then. For next meeting, we have application 20.
Are you here?
Yeah, I'm here now. I keep dropping in and out, so don't wait for me, just proceed.
Okay, well, I just want to let you know, the last proposal, we're having a public hearing for next month.
For task of four.
For task of four.
Yep, good, thanks.
Okay, application 21-02 WF, proposal by Premier Real Estate Services, second LLC to construct a residential home with associated improvements within an upland review area on lot 4, block 138, Mill Street.
So again, good evening for the record. My name is Jim Cassidy, professional engineer principal at the Permanent House in Pearson Cassidy. I'm here tonight representing Premier Real Estate Services for a proposal to develop a single-family residential house on a piece of property. The actual property is known as 0 Mill Street. Again, the first plan I have up before you is an existing site photo. The area outlined in yellow is the property that we're talking about this evening. North would be up on this page. So to your northeast or to the right is Mill Street, connected to Route 372. On the bottom, to the south, is Middletown Avenue. The overall property we're talking about consists of about 6.432 acres of R43 residentially zoned. The site is presently vacant. I understand at one time there may have been some kind of like a roadside stand on the property, primarily in this location here. Across the street is a church, and then off to the north is another vacant piece of property before you hit Route 9 as it crosses Mill Street. And then also off to the west, to the left, is another vacant piece of property. The property itself, the majority of the property is wetlands. Actually, 91% of the property is wetlands. The blue line, light blue line on this plan represents the limits of the wetland. We have the wetlands delineated by a soil scientist and located it by means of an accurate survey. So everything to the left or to the west of this line would be wetlands. Everything to the right is an upland area. So you can see this little pocket here. This is where the site stand used to be. What we're simply proposing to do, one other little point of just location of this. When you go down 372 and you see the billboard on the west side of the road, This billboard's on the property, so it's right at that northeasterly corner of the site. So my client purchased the property. What he simply would like to do is build one single family residential house on it. In that little upland area. In addition to, we're going to be doing, we're not doing a subdivision, we're doing a split of the property. Sorry, because the property's never actually been subdivided before, we're allowed what we call one free lot split, because it was never subdivided since the commencement date of the zoning regulations. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to split it into two pieces. Lot number one would have an area of about 3.11 acres. Lot number one would be the area we're looking to build the house. Lot number two would have an area of about 3.52 acres. And this would basically be what we call a non-buildable lot. It would primarily just have the billboard that's out there today. So the owner of the property today can maintain ownership of the billboard. The house that we're looking at putting up could be a rather small house. We're looking at having a house with a footprint of about 24 feet deep, 48 feet long, so it was small raised range. Unfortunately, to be able to develop it and meet the front yard setback of 50 feet, the brown rectangle would be the proposed house location. The red line on this plan represents the 50-foot upland review area from the wetlands. So the majority of the house would have to be within the 100-foot or the 50-foot upland review area. Driveway would come off of Mill Street directly into the front of the house. We do have this little teal area off to the side. We're proposing a rain garden for the roof leaders for the house, so we don't discharge them directly towards the wetlands area. They go through a rain garden too. In addition to utilities, the water and the sanitary sewer are both in Middletown Avenue. So we're going to have to bring a sanitary sewer force main similar to the last application through a pump station, and then back down Middletown Avenue into a new manhole we're constructing off the side of Middletown Avenue. So this would be a little low pressure force main system to tie into that new manhole. In addition to the water would follow that force main and tie into the existing water main in Middletown Avenue. So what does all this mean? At the end of the day, we're going to have a impact within the 50-foot upland review area. The overall impact would consist of the construction of the house, the grading of the yard area, and then the installation of these utilities. The total activity would consist of about 12,806 square feet of activity in the 100-foot upland review area. Not a lot more we can do with the site. It's very, very limited. We basically want a small footprint we think was realistic to build out here. We have the house situated as far forward as we can. We've actually taken the property and graded it in a manner so the back half would be a walkout because there's a fill slope in the back, therefore reducing the amount of grading required around the house. So we try to work a lot of things into it to minimize all the activities in the 100 or the 50-foot upland area. And this is about the only location we find for the house. In addition to, we actually did go out and test for a septic system. We found that the site, the soils were not appropriate for a septic system, but a better option was to do the sewer force main rather than having additional activities in that area for the on-site septic system. So we feel for this piece of property, unfortunately, this is about the best we're going to be able to do with it, being able to actually develop anything on it at all. So once again, I'm just going to give you a brief presentation because of the late hour. And I'm glad to answer any questions the commission may have at this point.
Just out of curiosity, what's the reason for the split?
So the purchase of the property can maintain ownership of the billboard. It's obviously income for years and years and years. And he's intending to maintain the house too, probably be a rental house. But in case he needs to sell it or he needs to sell something, there's that option open.
Jim, just for the commission's benefit, the distance between the back side of the house as it's proposed in the wetland line is
about 15 feet.
Is that enough, Jim?
It's going to be very tight.
Very
tight.
So,
certainly it's doable.
And how close are you to the 372?
So there's a 50-foot setback.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Right at the 50-foot setback. And again, with a 24-foot deep raised range.
Right, no, I
thought it was a realistic house for the property.
It's gonna be an eye opener.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and you say, I've been living here all my life. I've been here 60+ years. I don't remember anything ever being there.
So, I know they use it for construction during some rebuilding of
Right.
72. But when I look back at some historical photos, I'm seeing something there. It looks like a little paved turnout area.
I don't remember anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
I've only here 60+ years ago.
If you look at it, it's the way I picked up on it, it's an old highway that's so back. That's what it calls about.
Okay.
I started looking at some historical photos, and you kind of see something. I don't know if it's what farm's saying. Out there.
Yeah.
Or something.
I'm sure it probably was back then, but.
Maybe before Mill Street.
Yeah, you're right.
But Mr. Chairman, obviously, because of the visibility of the parcel, there are no direct impacts, but 15 feet is essentially an impact.
I think just where it is, I think we have to have a public
I
hearing.
would suggest the commission hold a public hearing, and perhaps Jim and I can have some discussions on beefing up some type of buffer or barrier to keep, activity from the rear of the home.
Yeah. I'm sure there's gonna be a planting schedule and all that stuff too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, that's some kind of a buffer back there, and, placard and.
Electrified fence.
Yeah. Rick, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, can I have a motion for, application 21-02, coming up for public hearing?
Commissioner Pavano makes a motion to go bring the public hearing in, motion 21-2 WF.
Commissioner Rogan will second it.
All in favor?
Agree.
Thank you for your time.
Yep, see you next month. Last one, application 21-03W, proposal by the town of Berlin to construct drainage improvements within a regulated area in conjunction with the construction of personal soccer fields on lots 65 and 69, lot 54, Highland Avenue.
Give him that first.
Excuse me, yeah, he's got it. Bob, are you there?
I'm here. Am I in a screen or no?
No, you are not.
Okay, just audio.
Yes. So perhaps you could walk the commission through the proposal?
Sure. Bob Barneschi with WMC Engineers on behalf of the town Public Parks and Rec Services. The proposal is to do some field renovations to Percival Soccer Field, which is east of the baseball field and pool complex. There's three distinct wetland areas surrounding the site, and I'll just kind of circumnavigate from the southwest corner, which is the baseball outfield, and I'll work counterclockwise. So I apologize, I didn't include a field photos for you, and I was hoping I was on a video that I can at least turn my screen around and show you on my monitor what they look like. But Wetland Area 1 is essentially a 24-inch, I mean, it leads to a 24-inch RCP culvert that conveys flow under the baseball outfield. And it pretty much conveys an intermittent water course. So it's just a kind of a gully type of wetland. The corner of the soccer field and baseball outfield have overland flow. There's a very subtle swale that we're looking to improve because it retains water. It can use a grading improvement in that area. So that's what we're calling Wetland Area number 1. Wetland Area number 2 is to the north. It's just to the east of the existing batting cage. And that discharges flow from Wetland Area 1. And that's a 24-inch HDPE pipe, which is partially buried. So there's probably only, 12, 16 inches of the orifice that you can see majority of the time that I've been out there. I've been out there maybe 3 or 4 times over the last few months, and it's kind of at a constant water level. In that area, all we're looking to do is do some minor grading improvements in the upland review area and install a new drainage outfall. Again, to accommodate the lack of pitch or slope grading at the toe of the baseball outfield slope and east of the soccer field where all the teams would congregate, and is really the main access. There's an access gate there where everybody enters that area. So we'd like to kind of dry that area up a bit. So what I'm proposing there is to put in a couple yard drains and then install just a 12-inch HDPE outfall, and I'm looking to put it literally adjacent to the existing 24-inch outfall. And then we go counterclockwise again, and now we're on the east side of the soccer field. The east side of the soccer field has a brook flowing from south to north behind Marjorie Hall, the building complex. And all we're looking to do in that vicinity is do a little bit of clearing and regrading work within the upland review area. We do have a proposal to install a new drainage outfall right at the limits of the upland review area to accommodate a few yard drains east of the soccer field, again, where the teams congregate and where the bleachers are placed. There have been historically that northeastern side of the field has settled over the years and has required maintenance, filling. So what we're proposing to do is to fill that area up approximately to the existing design elevations, regrade that eastern embankment, install a few yard drains, and again, a new 12-inch HDPE outfall, again, right at the outskirts of the upland review area limits. Those are the three main wetland areas, just in a broad sense. The remainder of the renovation that we're proposing for the town is outside the upland review area, but just to give you an idea of what we're doing, we're looking to remove some of the most used areas of the field and excavate approximately a foot, which is for the most part in the penalty box areas. A lot of the material there is very bony, rocky, a lot of very high silt content. And so what we're proposing to do there is excavate out the poor soils, put in some nicer free draining material, and resod a portion of the athletic fields that's used the most, and then regrade the southern embankment to establish a more defined swale, which is going to flow both east and west. So when we regrade the swale to the west along the southern goal line, that swale would discharge into wetland area number 1. So we'll have a convergence of two swales. And what I'm looking to do at wetland area 1 is not fill in that area, just kind of excavate out the limits that have already kind of eroded from the intermittent water course, where the 24-inch RCP collects that runoff, that water. Just expand that area that we can grade our swales and integrate that a little better. If you've been out there, there's just a chain link fence, so we would just reset that. We'd do a little bit of clearing within the upland review area, a little bit of clearing actually into wetlands. Our wetland areas of impact are fairly minimal. Overall looking to propose about 400 square feet of impact. Excavate 15 to 20 yards of material, and then our overall upland review area impact is just over 4,000 square feet. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
Well, Commissioner Rogan, what's your time frame on doing this work?
Yesterday, right, Bob?
Yeah, we're looking to go out to bid in March. I think we'd like the bulk of the construction would occur in May. And ideally, we'd like to wrap everything up mid-June when the kids are getting out of school and the camps start bringing kids up from the community center up this way. So we'd like to be, we're thinking a 4 to 6 week construction period, May into mid-June.
Well, the baseball field's gonna be affected with this a little bit, right?
No, the baseball field was.
This is Babe Ruth level, right?
Right.
It's just the toe slope associated with the outfield grading. So it's outside of the fence limits, outside of the warning track. The baseball field will be in full use and have full access.
Okay, because I know they're playing in May and June.
Yeah.
I mean, the project itself, Mr. Chairman, is really nothing more than restoring the existing conditions of the soccer field and trying to regrade the swales between the two fields and along the sidelines of the soccer field to better drain the site.
I know, I haven't played, I haven't been there in years with my kids, but I know the baseball field, the outfields, when you get it rain, you can be standing ankle deep water in the outfield, so.
Soccer was the same. So at this point, I don't see, staff is not recommending a public hearing. We're here more so just because there are some activities in the upland review.
We have to wait a mandatory 15 days.
Yes, yeah, so.
We can't approve what you're saying, we can't
We
approve this.
cannot take action this evening. Again, I don't see the need for a public hearing.
No.
It's just more.
It's all town land all around anyway, so it's, yeah.
We're meeting the statutory requirements.
Okay, so we're gonna do a continuance till next March then.
Yes.
Rick, any questions?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, so we just need a motion to continue
Continue the meeting to.
Okay, Commissioner Rogan, I'll make a motion to continue application 21-03W until the March meeting.
Have a second?
Commissioner Foil, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you, gentlemen.
See you next meeting.
I don't see it.
What?
I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't. You can handle it. Any correspondence?
The only thing I can tell you is that I think it was first part of the week, we received notification from Amtrak on their annual spraying of their right-of-ways for vegetation, to eliminate vegetation. It's basically flagging the rail from one end of town to the other. Locally, we do not have any jurisdiction over that. It's a federal regulated activity. But just in case someday you drive by the rail and
I've seen it.
Now, I didn't mention this in the beginning. Should I mention that we seated?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Lisa, I just want, I'm gonna mention we seated our alternate, Steve Biala. So we can have a quorum. Other than that, Jim, if there's nothing else, no correspondence. And we can't talk about anything anyway because it's a special meeting, so my next question will be, can I have a motion to close the meeting?
Commissioner Rogan will make a motion to close this special meeting.
Got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it. Would rather be there, but we got it done.
Yeah, I bet.
Good night.
Good night, Rick. Good job, Lisa. Thank you.